Hello everyone, and welcome to Hutch's Garage for episode 14 of my 1954 International Harvester Farmall Super MTA tractor restoration. In the last episode, episode 13, I was working on removing the main clutch throw-out bearing near the end of the episode. In this episode, work continues with removing the throw-out bearing and then on to remove the independent power takeoff primary drive shaft and gear. We then remove the torque amplifier clutch and its throw-out bearing, and then on to remove its own clutch. Near the end of this episode, a major failure is found. Please watch till the end to find out what happened. Please note that this video footage was made earlier in the year.
So I'm going to take off the throw-out bearing for the main clutch, lay it aside. I'm going to take off these 3 bolts that hold the cage for the power takeoff shaft and bearings. So there's 3 bolts using a 9/16 inch socket. Get them all loose. Alright, what I'm going to do next is tap on the back side with a brass punch near the top of the cage and get it to moving out. So I'm going to have to move the camera. I'll be tapping on this area right there. And if it doesn't move, we'll have to go to the drawing board. I can see that it's been tapped on before. Looks like they used a little bit more force than I'm using. Alright, so I'll be working on that to get it out. I'll show what it looks like when I get it out. Continuing on, trying to remove this power takeoff bearing cage. I finally got it loose, and it took a long time to do it. What I ended up doing was in the back, essentially using a crowbar, a small crowbar, and a piece of aircraft aluminum and prying against the back of the case there. It was just enough room to do it. Using a crowbar like this, okay, and prying where I could. You gotta be careful you don't touch the teeth on the gear. It moved probably a thousandth or 2,000ths. I could get it to wiggle just slightly. What finally got it loose, and what the problem is there's an O-ring in this cage, and it must have set up to the point where it was grabbing the outer part to the cage very tightly, and I had to break that loose. So what I ended up doing was taking this, reaching down with a punch, a long punch, and making sure I don't get into the threads, and wiggled it back and forth a little bit, and making some adjustments in my thickness to do this, working it back and forth just very slightly, and finally I was able to break it loose by turning it, okay? In other words, releasing that O-ring from the outer casting here, and then it just basically came loose. The final way of getting it out was using a little pry bar here. I used a softener up against the casing, which is basically a piece of cardboard. Kept working this around on each side till finally it came to this point right there. So now we're ready to pull it out. The book says you should just be able to pull it out. Well, that was not the case at all. So now I'm able to pull it out. We'll see what this gear and cage look like. Okay. So there you see it. There's that O-ring. Now I definitely have to get another O-ring. But if you can see it, that bearing's got some wiggle on it, and I believe the other one does too. So I have to get those bearings out and replace them. But now you can see this PTO gear right there that goes to the back of the tractor to the PTO clutch system. You can see a seal also. It's right here. That's going to be fun to get out also, but I believe I can do it. There's also a seal on the cage side, or the cage, the bearing cage side, just behind the bearing. So when I pull this out, this inner shaft here that goes into the torque amplifier came out also. It does have a provision on the end to put a nut or a bolt in there and pull it that way. Well, it just came right out with this other gear. So that's where we stand. Lay that aside. Let's look at the cavity where we took this out at. So right in there was where the bearing, two bearings, one here and one over here. There's a seal right behind there. And the gear that drove the power takeoff is right there. So now we're able to take, with that shaft out, the clutch throwout bearing yoke and this shaft right there. So that'll be my next step. Now that I've taken the power takeoff, bearing cage, drive gear, out the front. I should be able to take the throwout bearing out of here now, and then eventually take the pressure plate off this part, or the torque amplifier clutch, and inspect it. So the first thing I need to do is disconnect the PTO. There's a pin down here. I've already got the cotter key out. I'm dropping the pin down now. I can go ahead and push that back. So this is free. Let's look down here. This is the area I'm talking about. So like I said, I've removed the pin for the torque amplifier. So it's going to take a 5/8" wrench. Sorry about that, camera. You gotta be careful I don't drop all this down in there. There's what that looks like. I'm going to set that back there. There is a C clip right here. I need to get it off. So I'll take a small screwdriver. Let's see if I can change that light a little bit. Get under it and pry it out. These are always fun. That's right by the camera. There we go. There's also a washer. We'll take that off. Now I'm going to hold this. Let's see. That should be free, but it's not free. Let's hold me up here. I see beat marks on here where it looks like people have... There we go. Squeeze all that grease off of there. I think there's a small coupling that's... What I might do is put the shaft in there and see if I can wiggle that free. This is the shaft I'm talking about. Move it a little more. If you can see it now, you see this, should be able to see the splines on the camera. There we go. All right, what I want to do now is capture the throwout bearing. There we go. So there's the coupling. As you can see, there's some rust in there. This is a dry cavity on the tractor, so if any moisture gets in there, you know, the tractor's sitting out in the rain, it could weep through, most likely through the shaft, the throwout bearing shaft. Anyway, I got it out. And we'll look this over, and the next step will be to take the pressure plate off and inspect the clutch surface. Now that I got the Torque Amplifier throwout bearing out from this cavity here, I'm going to remove the Torque Amplifier clutch pressure plate. And the book, the service manual says use a special clip to keep the pressure plate under tension. In other words, squeeze down on it so it doesn't expand out when you release it or remove it from the clutch area. The IT service manual does not say anything about doing that. And what I plan to do is kind of go halfway in between, compromise. I'm going to use a set of fender washers and a 1 1/4 inch 5/16 inch bolt. And there's 3 locations you can put this in. It goes in the little cups where the pressure plate springs are at. I'm going to show you that now. Let's get this camera down here. So I'm going to put this in right here. The pressure plate is drilled and tapped for a 5/16 inch bolt. And you do not want it so long that it goes into the material of the clutch. That's all the tighter I need. I'm going to loosen this up just a little bit and raise this washer up, make sure it's all the way up. Okay. All right. So I have it in 3 locations, here, here, and here. One thing I want to point out, I cannot turn this unit in the opposite direction that it normally runs. That's because of the overrunning clutch back in here. So, take a 7/16 inch wrench and we'll begin loosening this up. We'll get them all loose first. Now you can see it releasing, starting to move away. Go to the next one. What should happen, this fender washer will contact this stamp part of the pressure plate frame. Never done this before, so we'll find out. We'll kind of evenly move this out all around. We're about an 1/8 inch. We got an 1/8 inch gap there. Let's get this one up to an 1/8 of an inch. We're almost touching the fender washer. Once we get to that, it should not expand out anymore. I'm going to go ahead and pull this one out. We have to be careful not to drop anything down in the cavity. We're still not touching. This may be it may be holding the fingers down right down there. As long as we keep tension on it. All right, that one's coming all the way out. There's two. Before I remove this, in case this thing is balanced, I'm going to put a punch mark here and here. Let me get my punch and do that. It's pretty hard steel. I'll just use a magic marker for now. Okay, it's pretty much loose now. Just got two more. These two right there. Okay, I'm going to grab it. Let that sit there for a moment. Out comes the pressure plate. There you can see my fender washers. I think it did a combination mainly of holding the fingers down. So anyway, that's good enough. They didn't come all the way out. I'm surprised to see a little bit of rust. Now let's take the clutch itself out. Gonna work that back. Nope, what it looks like on this side. Okay, there's that surface. Looks actually pretty good, like there's plenty of wear left. This is a 7-inch clutch. I may measure it and I may replace it. I'm surprised it's actually true and flat, so that's good. So the only thing I would need to do, if I need to do anything at all, would be to replace this. But I do think it has plenty of wear left. I'll have to see. I may still go ahead and buy a new one. And there you have it. That's, you can see a little farther down in there. And this is the net you have to take off. It is captured with a fold over lock right there. You would have to bend that back and you'd be able to remove this part, this clutch carrier. You have to split the tractor to get the torque amplifier out. In my opinion, this torque amplifier is in good shape. As I said before, it shifted very good, no problems, no hesitations, and it performed perfectly. So I believe it's been replaced at one time, possibly. I do not know 100%. Looking at the teeth here on the spline, they look pretty decent. So I believe, like I say, if anything, I'll buy a new clutch element, and that would be it. I do not have to resurface it. Just put it in there. I want to talk about what I found on the tractor, that it's a problem. It's a problem in the independent power takeoff system. Earlier, I showed removing this gear and shaft, and this is the primary drive gear that drives the power takeoff system. This shaft is connected to the pressure plate on the clutch, and whenever the engine's running, this shaft is turning at the same speed as the engine. I mentioned that the bearings seemed to be worn out and they were wiggling a little bit. I tested them, and I did order brand new ones and received them, and then I went to a friend's house and had the old ones pressed off and the new ones pressed on. To remind everybody where this goes, it goes inside there. I won't put it all the way in, but it goes in and drives the driven gear down below. If you look closely, there's the driven gear, and when I spin the drive gear, I noticed that this thing was moving back and forth a little bit, and I thought, that shouldn't do that. And then I decided to drain the oil because I was afraid that the bolt had come off that holds this. Well, sure enough, if you look down in there, there's a bolt down in there. I don't know where you can see it, but so what I did was drain the oil, and I couldn't see the bolt initially because the oil covered it. So let's go inside and see where that thing's at. All right, you can see the driven gear there. That's a lot of play. Shouldn't do that. So I took this off. It was on fairly tight, wasn't too bad to get off. That's this 2-inch pipe plug right here. And there it is. And it'd come out of it screws into that hole right there. There's a big washer that's supposed to go there, plus a lock washer, I believe. I've not found those yet because I'll have to take the bottom plate off to get to it. But there's the bolt. Good old international bolt. Don't know if it's ever been loosened up or what, or if this was never touched. I don't know. If it had been taken apart and put back together for whatever reason, I don't think it was tightened up right. So what I did, I was able to order a new gear and a new shaft, and the retaining bolt and the retaining washer are coming with it. I got it off of eBay from somebody in Ohio. So that's where I stand right now. I want to add a little more information about the PTO on this tractor. When this tractor was last used by my dad up into the mid 1990s to early 2000s, basically 2 or 3 times a week he ground feed with it for the cows and also for the hog operation. And so the PTO was used a lot. And I'm surprised something didn't fly apart and break. It's actually, he was pretty lucky it didn't happen. But this had to be that way while he was operating, at least in the last however many years, until the operation was shut down when he retired. So this not only did feed grinding, it also ran the blower for the silo. When they cut silage and put it into the 2 silos, this tractor ran the blower, which took most all of its horsepower to do that. And so it was under pretty heavy load when that blower was being used when they unloaded the wagons. I just want to mention that this tractor was used for the PTO for a long time. Well, of course it was off and on when it was first bought, but it was under heavy load from 1963 on, when it became mainly a PTO tractor, and it would haul wagons and things like that. And every once in a while they'd use it for disking and plowing, but mainly it was used for PTO work.
That's all the time we have for in this episode. Thank you for watching this video. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Please continue to join me for the next episode as I restore and rebuild this 1954 International Harvester Farmall Super MTA tractor.